Okay, welcome. A few weeks ago, we were in Ephesus, a wonderful visual place with a lot left. In fact, we spent 2 times there. Episode 21, we entitled Paul in Ephesus, and episode 22, John in Ephesus. So if you haven't had a chance to see those, you might want to go back and catch those because there's a lot of interesting stuff in Ephesus. Last week we were in Sardis, out in the country, and this week we're going to be in Sardis again. This is Sardis II, and more the in-town part of Sardis. So we're going to pull up those slides of Sardis and take you to another one of these very visual, very interesting places in western Anatolia, what we call now western Turkey. There's Ephesus there. We went up to Pergamum, you might recall, and then last week we were in Sardis, and we're in Sardis again. Now, last week I promised you I'd say something more about this area before the Romans came in. After the Romans came in, this was the Roman province of Asia, but before the Romans came in, there was the traditional kingdoms. The kingdom of Lycia, kingdom of Cardia, kingdom of Mysia is up here, and Phrygia over here, and this is part of the kingdom of Lydia. We talked a little bit about Croesus, the king of the kingdom of Lydia, and his great wealth from the river gold there in Sardis. We also noted last week that the city of Thyatira was part of the traditional kingdom of Lydia. And now I want to make the connection for you, because the lady that we meet in Philippi, Acts chapter 16, who is known as Lydia from Thyatira, the dealer in purple or scarlet dye, Lydia was probably not her personal name. She probably had some long, unpronounceable Asian name when she got to Philippi, which is, of course, in Greece. And people said, who is she? Well, she's the lady from Lydia, or the Lydian lady. And that just became her name. Some of you remember from your, not church history, but your art history, a painter of the Spanish Renaissance named El Greco. And El Greco was not his real name. He was Greek from the island of Crete, had a long, unpronounceable Greek name. When he got to Spain, they said, who is this guy? He's the Greek. That works, of course, if you're the only Greek in town. And so it became known as El Greco, not his personal name at all. Not for sure, but likely that a similar thing happened with Lydia. But in any case, she is from this area, and she is from that city right there. And we talked quite a few weeks ago about her wonderful, wonderful time there in Philippi with her. And let me find that for you. That was episode 13, in case you want to go back and look at that. But today we're going to be back in Sardis. We talked about that Persian Royal Road, 1,677 miles from Susa, the capital of Babylon, right here to Sardis, downtown Sardis, capital of the westernmost satrapy of the Persian Empire. And we talked about how when the decree went out during the time of Queen Esther, that the Jewish people across the empire could defend themselves, that decree would have been read right here in Sardis. Also, didn't mention last week, but the Old Testament prophet Obadiah, in verse 20, has a reference to Jewish people in Sardis. Obadiah 20 says that the exiles, Jewish exiles who are in Sepharad, will return to Jerusalem. And Sepharad is almost certainly a reference to Sardis. So, very interesting overlap there between our Asian history and Old Testament history. Okay, we're on that Royal Road, and now we're going to turn around and look at the shops, what basically lined that road. About 27 shops. You can see the shop, right, one of the shops right here. About 27 shops right here along that road. And 10 of them are clearly identified as belonging to Christian merchants. Think Aquila and Priscilla or people like that. 10 of them, because of the graffiti in them or inscriptions or crosses, were owned by Christ followers. 6 of them are clearly identified as having Jewish proprietors right here in downtown Sardis, and 11 of them had no particular inscriptions, so we don't know. Probably Greeks, Asians, Romans, or could have been Christians or Jews and just didn't happen to identify themselves. This particular shop was clearly identified. Clear inscription on one of the stones, and the archaeologists have kindly made that larger and clearer for us. The shop of Jacob, elder of the synagogue. So it's very distinctive to have this kind of Jewish presence right in the middle of this very classical Asian, pagan, and now Roman city. It's absolutely fascinating. And we'll come back to that synagogue issue later. But first we'll go to one of the very classical and Roman places, just a stone's throw away. That road is over there. That shops are right there. And here we are in the Palestra, the remains of the Palestra, which is the wrestling house, and the remains of the gymnasium. Very, very large area. And on the far edge of the area, the entrance to the Roman baths. After a heavy workout, head for the showers, or the baths in this case. And this is just magnificent, so I'll bring you closer. Get a little bit closer. You can see that the first row are Ionic columns, second row are Corinthian columns. It's a full 2-story entrance. This is brick and stone work. The core would have been faced with white marble. When this was rebuilt by the American archaeologists, 1964 to 1973, they were able to rebuild it very nicely, could not afford to replace all the marble that had been pilfered over the years for people's countertops or whatever. But you get a sense of just how magnificent it is. I'm going to bring you a little closer in the next one. You can see there's some of the marble was left, survived. You can see the columns are fluted in a spiral. Just it's like, this is going to go the next level in decoration. You can see the Ionic columns on the capitals there, Corinthian columns, capitals on the columns up there. Just a magnificent. That's the entrance into the bath. As we said earlier, Romans loved arches and brickwork, and they could really do it. So, an inscription above the entrance, Sebasto, which is Greek equivalent for Augustus, and Julia, his wife. So this was obviously in honor of the emperor, to mention the emperor, to mention the emperor's wife. There may have even been some kind of temple to the emperor around here to honor him, because this is very, very elaborate stuff. And this is, 2,000 years old. And so it's obviously a high quality stone and very carefully carved. Go through that entrance, you come out into the cold pool. Roman baths had 3 pools, the frigidarium, the tepidarium, and the caldarium, which means the cold pool, the lukewarm pool, and the hot pool. This was the cold pool, and then through the furnaces would be the lukewarm pool and the hot pool. Very, very significant size here, as you can see. Okay, so that's that Palestra, and that's that entrance to the Roman baths. The shops basically is where I'm standing, and this is the synagogue. Again, it's just mind-boggling. You're right in the middle of this classical pagan city, and this the largest synagogue ever discovered in the ancient world. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. We're going to step back now and enter the synagogue. You can see that wall. We'll be back there in a moment where that beautiful marble is. But this is the courtyard of the synagogue with a very beautiful fountain. The archaeologists are pretty sure this would have been available to everyone. If you were a resident of Sardis, whether you were Roman, pagan, Christian, Jew, whatever, you'd be free to come and enjoy the beautiful fountain. in the front of the Jewish synagogue, take a nice drink, wash your hands, and then only if you were Jewish or a seeker, you would enter through the door into the synagogue itself. And we're going to do that. And two lions here, again, fascinating. Lions were traditional symbols of classical pagan Sardis, but the Jewish folks here apparently felt we could repurpose that as symbols of the Lion of Judah, you know, from the Old Testament. The couple of eagles on this table here got repurposed into a table to put the Torah scrolls for reading. Those shops are just over the wall there. That gymnasium, which is absolutely verboten to Jewish people, is just a stone's throw the other way. You know, we don't know if this is sheer genius on the part of the Jewish community here, or if they were really compromising so much that they could be so at home in this pagan city. It's quite remarkable. Gives you a sense of the size. They figure about 1,000 people could have attended here. Would have been all of your practicing Jewish people, plus seekers or God-fearers. Beautiful mosaic floors. These are original. And in Turkey, you walk on those. That's what's different from Greece or Israel. They have so many fewer visitors here that you know, you're just kind of enjoy the place. Don't, you know, you're not trying to keep it behind glass. Oh, it's quite amazing. Give you a little close-up, and that this synagogue, as it stands, was probably built around 300-400 A.D. on the top of an earlier synagogue. So that mosaic floor isn't really 2,000 years old. It's only about 1,600 years old. Quite impressive yet, I do think. And then more, even finer quality artwork on the walls, marble, tumbling blocks, quilt patterns. Some of you recognize it. Another quilt pattern here. Just put up there to be beautiful, artistic and beautiful, and just an amazing, amazing place. Okay, final picture here. This is an inscription on the floor, as you may have guessed, on the mosaic floor in white and black tesserae. The inscription says, Aurelios Eulogios, God-fearer, fulfills his vow. Now, God-fearer would be a pagan or a Roman who has become attracted to the Old Testament faith, comes to listen to the Old Testament scriptures, but has not made the full commitment of circumcision and food laws and so forth. And they were called God-fearers, and they sat in the kind of in the back of the synagogue and listened respectfully. They seemed to be attracted by the high moral standards, by the idea of one supreme God and so forth, but they're not quite ready to be circumcised, which was a massive offense to Greek and Roman people. But apparently this person was attracted enough, identified enough with the Jewish faith that he made some kind of significant vow and paid that vow. And I'm going to guess it was in connection with building this synagogue. You know, they had a building drive. He made a massive contribution, and they honored that contribution. Again, absolutely fascinating. The level of acceptance of Jewish people in this city of Sardis. We do know that Julius Caesar, a generation or two earlier, had written a letter to the people of Sardis and also to other parts of the empire that Jewish people should be respected, be allowed to keep their food laws, to keep Sabbath, to govern their own affairs, and allowed to send money to the Jerusalem temple, and one other thing that I forget was specifically mentioned, but a high level of freedom and respect for the Jewish people. That didn't always hold, of course. Sometimes there were local prejudices against Jewish people and then later against Christ followers also. But even though from Acts chapter 18, Gallio rules definitively in favor of Paul. He has the right to speak. He has the right to be under the protections of that Jewish identity. So it's later, a little bit later, things get worse, of course, after Nero becomes emperor. So, okay, well, that is Sardis, one of the jewels of Western Turkey. So we will drop those slides there. And so thank you for joining us. And next week we hope to be off to, I think it's Laodicea or Hierapolis. Again, very lovely spots. So thanks for joining us. Have a great week. And we will see you next week, Lord willing. Okay, we need to end here.